That's not something that the conference has necessarily supported in the past, and the ADs may have a little bit of a different take on that.
Yeah.
Did that come up today in the meetings? I know the meetings aren't over.
Right. We meet with the football coaches this afternoon, so we briefly talked about it, and it was really just around, hey, the coaches brought it up.
Yeah.
Here's some of their key points that they'd like to talk about, but that's really it. We just touched on it, so we haven't really talked about it.
Okay, is it maybe something to come back later on today?
Yeah, I think so.
Just your own personal thoughts on where you haven't even had a chance to dig into it.
To me, if we can clean up some of the things around the edges, meaning there's a lot of kids that know where they want to go, and want to go through the process of wasting all those trips, the time and expense that it takes to take 5 official visits. If they know where they're going to go, it's not like that component of the discussion. And if you can assign a few kids early to focus on some of the kids that you don't have locked in, then I'm all for looking at that. But I want to know a lot more about it, and a lot more of the logistics around it before really making a decision on what we support. And then it would have to be national.
That's
so
the other thing too. Like you can't do anything.
Yeah,
you can't do anything without making it with just yourselves.
Right.
Another issue that sort of came up yesterday with the coaches is sort of a national issue, but it's affecting the SEC a little bit more directly. James Franklin in Penn State had being guest coaches at camp down at Georgia State. Now in the SEC, their coaches couldn't do that. Now you have coaches from outside with these arrangements. Is that something that the SEC might have to address locally, and then to do something about it?
I like what our commissioner said, and when things like this happen, we have to re-examine. We haven't talked about that particular issue yet because we haven't met with the coaches yet, but it might come up. It might be one of those things.
Was it a little disturbing to you, just from a guy who works in the SEC?
Obviously, we're going to protect our home turf and recruit to our home turf. Every time we get a chance. And so that's our backyard. And so anytime those things happen, your eyes and ears perk up to say, what do we need to do to address if that's a hindrance? If it's a competitive disadvantage, then we need to look at it.
The upcoming SEC network, is that an opportunity for the schools to sort of reassess where their non-revenue sports are, because the chance for those non-revenue sports to get a big boost from the SEC network? I don't know if you're going to actually make money on them, but is it sort of a point where you go, let's see what we can do here to give a boost?
We're hiring a new softball coach right now, and so one of our selling points and messages to those candidates are, hey, all of your games are going to be on some sort of digital platform on the SEC network. And so whether that's the kind of the third tier school produced, whether that's the SEC network produced on the digital, or whether it's on your TV set, all of our games are going to be televised in some manner. And so what better way to recruit a kid from California, because we all know those are the best players in softball around California, what better way to promote your network or your program than using the SEC network? So absolutely, it's going to be key for Olympic sports, golf, tennis. We have rifle. Can we do a profile on rifle at some point in time to boost our program? Absolutely. So those are the things that, no question, the SEC might do.
Some incremental games, not necessarily huge gains, you would think, but
obviously you're not going to look at it from a pure dollar standpoint. Is rifle going to make more money? Probably not. But are we going to get more exposure? Can we recruit a kid that otherwise wouldn't have been on the radar because they saw our program? I think it's going to incrementally grow our programs because of those impressions.
How much have you had to spend retrofitting your broadcast facilities for ESPN? Because I know LSU said they spent $2 million.
We were pretty far advanced in our production, but we still ended up spending $750,000 to upgrade cameras, to upgrade what they call a TriCaster. You know what that means? That's a connection point between the studio and the venue and the fiber that runs to ESPN. So we had to spend about $750,000.
Hugh Freeze mentioned yesterday that some concern over the growth of support staffs on football staffs across the SEC. And he'd like to see that limited, and he also brought up the idea of having a 10th on-field assistant. But what are your thoughts just on support staff? Is that getting out of control a little bit?
I think it's all resources. What do you have to spend, and what are you willing to invest to grow your program? So I think there's a balance there. What I'd like to see is when we get some of this autonomy discussions and some of those things finalized, is where does the staff discussion go, particularly in the sport of football, because that's where you're seeing a lot of creep. And these analysts that come up in different programs, what do they really do? What's the purpose? Obviously, they can't coach on the field, but there's an advantage gained somewhere. And so I think we need to look at it in the autonomy discussion. What are the right numbers? We don't have the answers yet because we need to look at all the different models, but I think that'll come out in the autonomy discussion.
But the schools that spend more money on that put you at a competitive disadvantage. When they layer their staff with over 30 people,
you look at these staff rosters compared to what we have, and you say, yeah, I mean, they have more resources. They have more of a budget, so they're adding more people. And so it puts you at a competitive disadvantage, because then it's time. People are time. And how much time do you have to prepare or gain an advantage through scouting or film or whatever? It does. It puts more resources on the table for those programs.
Ross, have you got a sense of maybe what the role of ADs will be if the proposed government changes?
Well, we know that, as part of the proposal, there's a council underneath the board of directors, and it's heavily weighted towards athletic administrators, athletic directors. And so that gives, I think, athletic directors more of a voice at the national scene. That's kind of been the angst that we've all had over the last 18 months or so. Is we're the practitioners, we're the ones carrying out the mission of college athletics on our campuses, but yet our voice kind of got diminished. So how do we get that back? And I think that's one piece of it. And I think the other piece is the autonomy of the 5 conferences, coming together more consistently to talk about the issues, and that creates a voice among the directors. So how that plays out, day to day, not really sure yet. But I think the structure, we're pleased with how that's coming together.
I know it's been an early signing.
Yeah, we're talking about that. My thought is,